So WWE finally made the ESPN. But after watching their first pay-per-view on this platform, I'm asking myself, what in the hell was this? Now, I didn't care about this opener coming into the show, but my God, did John Cena versus Brock Lesnar make me question, who can possibly think that this was good? Like, how? This match was nothing more than a cheap parody, and a horrible parody at that, of their SummerSlam match from 11 years ago. Now, that SummerSlam match worked because Lesnar destroying Cena with multiple German suplexes was actually fresh. Cena had never been dismantled like that before, so that story had some impact. Here, in this match, they just swapped the German suplexes for F5s and called it a day. The result of all this was just complete garbage. Both guys looked every bit their age. The pacing dragged, the structure fell apart, and multiple finishers don't create drama when the wrestlers move like they're underwater. Cena's whole retirement tour has been a complete disappointment, outside of his last 2 months in the ring. And this match here exemplified why. Lesnar looked disinterested, going through the motions, and the whole thing was just garbage. The post-match beatdown of the referee and then doing another F5 to John Cena served no purpose at all, unless you actually care about plant little kids crying in the crowd. This entire presentation was so lame, especially on ESPN at that. I cannot fathom the target audience here, besides the WWE sheep obviously. This was just a goofy spectacle masquerading as something that you're supposed to take seriously. Nothing could have saved this match, given where both men are in their careers. The fundamental problems ran too deep, and at 1.25 stars, this match was just horrid. The Vision versus the Usos. Bro, what was this? This match had one of the most drawn out heat segments I've seen in a while. They kept Jimmy Uso down forever, trying to build to this hot tag to Jey Uso. But there was no variety in the offense, and there was zero compelling storytelling at that. The whole thing just dragged. Braun Breaker did this bizarre shoulder tackle of some sorts, where he basically leaped in the air and landed sideways. Now look, the athleticism of it all was impressive, but the logic made no sense. Why would anyone execute a move like that? The only sequence worth watching in this match was when all four guys started hitting spears, Frankensteiners, and swantons. Finally, something different from that boring garbage they was trying to do earlier. And that's when the match came alive just briefly. And LA Knight as the special referee to me at the end of the day was just pointless. The supposed friction with Yeet Man over the suicide dive spot, it pretty much led nowhere. And Knight's presence, granted, it allowed for some weapon usage, but it added nothing meaningful to the story or match quality. This was just basically a random Raw match, not something that belonged on pay-per-view, especially on your debut of ESPN. The crowd stayed quiet except for the routine yeet chants, which pretty much validated exactly how boring this match was. Nobody cared because the structure was fundamentally broken. When your audience checks out, that tells the whole story. At 2.5 stars, this match was just a complete waste of time. Now finally a match that woke the show up a little bit. Stephanie Vaquer versus Iyo Sky for the vacant women's world title. Now these two had variety and pacing that the previous matches completely lacked. They took their time to let the match and the storytelling develop, instead of just being stuck in the same boring structure we've seen all night so far. Both women has extensive experiences in Mexico and Japan, and that showed. They meshed perfectly because they were both among the best women's wrestlers in the world right now. Now the crowd was dead until Stephanie hit that springboard crossbody, and that's when they came alive. WWE crowds are hilariously weird. They'll sit silent until one high spot happens, then immediately break into this is awesome chant. That chant has not meant anything for years now. It's just a routine chant, basically saying now and code for, hey, you woke us up. Now, I thought the back and forth in this match worked because both women understood timing and they knew how to build the drama. This match was getting to that great level, but needed maybe about 7 more minutes to reach that peak. I thought they was just hitting their stride here. And obviously, Vaquer winning was the absolute right call. And I thought that spiral tap finish looked really, really good. Now, hopefully, now that she's champion, she gets paid like a champion years down the road instead of being someone chasing the WWE dream, getting lowballed and all that. It's time to get to the bag. Enough of the dream chasing since you already achieved it. Now it's time to get the bag when it's time to get it. Now at 3 3/4 stars, I thought this was the highlight of a shitty show so far. So with the anticipation finally over of AJ Lee's return after 10 years with CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, we gotta keep it real here. AJ Lee looked every bit like she stepped out of the Divas-era. The paintbrush slaps, the prancing, the limited moveset, everything about her screamed Divas. But wait, she hasn't wrestled in 10 years. Here's the thing, she wasn't that good back then either. Who was seriously calling her top 5 or top 10 in the world during this Divas period? Nobody. Now we're supposed to get excited about this after watching Stephanie and Iyo had their match? The standards, if y'all haven't noticed, have been raised with women's wrestling. So give me actual women's wrestlers that can actually work. Now, as far as the match goes, I thought they tried to get too cute with certain spots like Punk and Becky doing the sharpshooter on each other. I thought that looked awkward and it barely got a reaction, or the reaction I think they didn't expect to get. In that table spot near the finishing sequence, it had the right idea, but the execution of this was terrible. This match could have been cut by probably about several minutes, and it could have had the same impact. Now, the heat segment on Punk did serve its purpose for the curiosity factor of AJ's comeback and getting that hot tag, unlike the Vision Uso match. But let's be honest, this whole thing was carried by nostalgia. AJ Lee nostalgia. I want y'all to think about that for a minute. 10 years, you got AJ Lee nostalgia. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. The diva nostalgia is just cringe at this point. Enough of the Bella twins, the Michelle McCools, the AJ Lees. It's time to move on from this crap. Now, as far as the match goes, at 3 stars, this match was acceptable, but it once again exposed how far women's wrestling has progressed. And why, again, these divas, including AJ Lee, need to go away. And finally, we end this train wreck with Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. This was a bunch of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, Drew, he hit a nasty reverse Alabama slam on the steel steps and had a nice tope con hilo, but none of it mattered because there was zero follow through. Those spots existed in a vacuum with no impact on the match flow or the story. Cody Rhodes as champion is just so boring in every possible way at this point. Everything about his title reign lacks any interest or compelling television. This match felt like a Saturday night's main event match, not a pay-per-view title match, not a pay-per-view main event. The match quality was exactly what I expected from current WWE, which is to say it's not much. My expectations were already on the floor going in. These WWE pay-per-views has such a low bar that this wasn't even disappointing. It was just there. You missed nothing of note. Nothing at all. Here's what makes this worse. This was WWE's debut on ESPN. This should have been a showcase match to impress a new audience. Instead, they delivered exactly what current fans have come to expect. Mediocre bullshit dressed up as importance. The platform, in my opinion, deserved better, or maybe not, because ESPN made a decision to pay WWE to put on this nonsense. But I do think some of the audience deserved better. And at just 2.5 stars, This match was the perfect ending to a forgettable show. WWE Wrestlepalooza was absolute garbage from start to finish. This was WWE's debut on ESPN, and they produced this bullshit? The entire presentation from start was goofy and corny, with obviously Triple H as the face of it all. You had the punter Pat McAfee on commentary, stroking his own ego, while Michael Cole reminded everyone every 5 minutes about the ESPN debut. This whole thing felt forced and desperate. And here's what makes this worse. They intentionally went head to head with AEW All Out and chose this as their counter programming. Now, if your strategy is running AEW out of business to maintain your monopoly, at least produce a better product. Instead, we got this same mediocre bullshit masked by high production values. It's the same song and dance they've been doing for years. The illusion that this company has gotten better since that bad man left is just laughable. These shows suck, and some people are still afraid to admit that. Match quality has been substandard across the board, and who exactly is this supposed to attract? Besides the existing WWE fan, I can't see anyone who's never watched wrestling before tuning into this and thinking they'd be interested. Now, in a perfect world, this should have been balls to the wall action to showcase wrestling to ESPN's audience. Instead, they delivered their standard, uninteresting matches with the same tired storytelling. WWE has been bad for years. Yes, they have. And this show proved nothing has changed. And at a score of a 5 out of 10, this show is complete garbage and not recommended.